All right, let's pop some popcorn. Let's start popping, y'all. Now, whenever I cook or do any kind of things that involve dishes, I didn't do anything for the snacks, but I like to keep a towel draped to my shoulder. This is such a good practice to get in, guys. Get away from that paper towel nonsense. Throw one over your shoulder. That way, if you're getting into some nonsense and you need something real quick, you're right here. You're ready to go. You can always go to the sink and wash your hands off, but this towel will save you, and you'll see me wearing it whenever I'm cooking because it's so important. Now, popcorn is actually very, very easy. But we've gotten into a habit where we buy these microwave bags or the kettle top ones to pop, and they're never as good, and they're never as hearty, and they got a bunch of chemicals in them that aren't good, and they're cooked in wax and plastic. Let's stay away from them. Let's learn how to do it ourselves, okay? Now, this is about the pot I'm going to use, so you can kind of have an idea. Maybe have a pot this size a little bit bigger, that's fine. To start off with, I'm going to do about 1/3 of a stick of butter, okay? I'm just going to cut it right down the middle with a knife. I'm gonna put it in my pot. We're just gonna go right up to the stove here, but I wanna show you what kind of butter we're getting in here. This is just our base pan layer butter, okay? This is gonna help us with our popcorn popping initially here. See, again, my hands have butter on them. Instead of like running around our paper towels, just wiping on here. Get yourself a nice set of these cloth towels for the kitchen. It'll make the huge difference for you. That's about where we are, right? Start it up. So, butter's a funny animal. Butter will actually burn if you're not careful. So we're gonna put about medium heat, about 5 or 6. If you wanna spike it at first to get your pan hot, that's totally fine, but make sure you're cooking butter at about half the maximum temperature of your oven. It'll make sure you don't burn it. Some stuff like olive oil and avocado oils, they can actually go a little bit higher, and that's why we fry foods in them a lot. So we want to make sure that we have our butter about halfway set on maximum. And this you can tell, if you have it too high, it'll start to turn brown. And that's called burning your butter. Not a big deal. It just kind of changes the flavor profile. It separates the lipids a little bit. So make sure you keep your butter nice about medium. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, it's getting nice and melty. So we just give it a couple minutes here. The next step obviously is going to be add our popcorn. Now, some people like to add in a couple kernels right at the beginning. I've heard this method. I used to do it myself. You just take a couple kernels and you throw it in the butter. And what this does is it allows you to understand when the butter's hot enough to actually add popcorn to pop. I've gotten away from this because I felt like I was doing a double bake, a double cook. I cooked the first 2 kernels and they were hot enough, and then I threw more kernels in and it took just as long to get those hot. So I kind of steered away from that. That's okay. To each their own. So our butter's getting nice and toasty, you can tell. It's starting to bubble here. We're running around the pan a little bit. Oh my goodness, I love butter. Look how delicious it looks. You know, maybe I'm gonna add a little bit more. I'm gonna add a little bit more butter here. Look, you can't go wrong with butter, all right? Especially when you're popping popcorn. You want to add a little bit more butter? Good on you, man. All right. Pretty easy so far, right? Now, the next step is you want to put enough popcorn in here to make sure that you fill your pot up, but not too much. So the deal is generally you want to make sure you have a nice even layer, about 1 kernel around the entire inside of this. You don't want to stack up popcorn really high. You just want to make sure it has a nice bottom layer to it. So we're just going to start putting it in here real slowly for you guys. Just like that. Yeah. So we covered the base. You see the base is covered here? It doesn't have stacked. It's just about 1 kernel high a piece. We can kind of set it down here, pat it down. Turn our stove just a little bit, about halfway there. Really, this is about all there is to make popcorn. So we're gonna give this a couple minutes. It's gonna start popping, and you're gonna start hearing the action. And then we're gonna go into the second part where we start adding some more butter and we start adding salt to it to get that flavor that we want. Here we go. Put the lid on. Guys, put your lid on. If you don't, probably gonna pop right out of the pan. Not to mention, if you're ever cooking popcorn or you're boiling water, throw the top on there. Just because heat will escape from convection and it'll take twice as long to cook things because it's not covered. Same thing if you're cooking like a steak on the pan. If you want to cook it faster, just put the top. Put a plate over top, capture that heat as it escapes. Just kind of cooking essentials 101, if you will. All right, let's give it a couple minutes. So, the next step is, once the popcorn gets a little bit fuller, We'll add a little bit more butter to it. Get set up here for that. And of course, salt. I love to do coarse ground kosher salt. It looks beautiful, it's non-iodized. They started adding iodine to salt in the 50s because they weren't getting enough in their diet, and it was starting to cause goiters, and goiters happen in your neck and your thyroid swells. So that's why they started adding iodine to salt. But you don't necessarily need it nowadays. There's plenty of vitamins you're probably taking, and your food should be rich in it. All the cruciferous vegetables that we're gonna eat are high in iodine. So you can kind of skip that and go for some really delicious salts. If I'm ever in the mood, I take that same kosher salt and I put it in a salt grinder we're gonna do for this popcorn. That way the kosher salt doesn't fall down into the cracks. We'll get it nice and powdered as we add it to this popcorn. It's gonna cover it deliciously. But really, that's your basic stuff. Now look, if you wanna get fancy, I love that too. There's all kinds of stuff. You wanna make your garlic or onion, you wanna put some powder in there, you wanna do a little bit something different, maybe you wanna put some chili in there. Hey man, it's your popcorn. What do I hear? Oh, popcorn time. Oh boy, it's my favorite part. See, now this isn't so hard, right? But you know, the popcorn that we get from the stores in the microwave, it can have plastic lining in the bag, and you're really eating heated plastic or waxes, paraffins. So stay away from that. Make your popcorn over here. So satisfying to hear it pop. Oh man, it's too bad we can't translate the smell because this smells delicious. Remember our heat set about medium. Don't set it a lot higher. You're starting to burn your stuff. Now at this point you can probably take the lid off and do a little bit of something because most of the popping's happening on the bottom. It's not going to shoot up and hurt yourself. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt to this now. Just kind of get the top layers with some salt. Now listen, see how hear the popping kind of going away? We're starting to run out of kernels here at the bottom, so we're going to take that off the heat. All right, we don't want to keep it on. At this point, it's time to add our delicious butter. Oh my God. So we're going to take a little bit more butter. What we're going to do is we're going to throw it right down the side of this pan. Just like that right there. It'll start to melt and run down the side. Right? We'll just throw a little bit of salt on top here. Because there's a lot of popcorn, it can take some salt. Put your lid back on. Take your towel and hold the pot with it, okay? I'm gonna give it a little bit of shake. That butter is starting to fall to the bottom and get all over this popcorn. It's going to be so delicious. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. Shake it around, get some butter all up in there. Ooh. Now we shook it around a little bit. Let's make sure we get plenty of salt in there. Let's open it one more time. A little bit more salt in here. Hear that butter in the bottom? Sizzling? Now this is such a delicious treat. Right, so if you're craving that crunch and you can't seem to satisfy it, and you want that crunchy stuff, don't turn to potato chips. Come into the kitchen, make yourself something delicious. Make yourself some delicious popcorn. And look, popcorn will last. So make it for one day, and if you've had enough and you want to keep snacking more, it does store well. Next day, popcorn is the most delicious. Here we go. Look at this. Popcorn. Instant. Oh my God, so good. All right, what do we do here? We made a real snack in our kitchen. We use real butter. We use real popcorn. We made it on the stove. We made it for ourselves. Now look, one thing I want to cover here in great detail is when you're done cooking, the first thing you really need to do is ensure that you're cleaning up after yourself. Especially when the pan's hot like this, things come off a lot easier. So let's roll over to the kitchen. Put a little hot water in there and just rinse it out. Okay? Stop here, grab your sponge, just wash it. Hold it by the handle that's not hot. Get in here, swing around a little bit while it's still warm. It's definitely the time to clean this. Before your popcorn even has a chance for most of the heat to escape, you can be done with cleaning up your snacks. And this is where people go wrong, I think. So that's why we're gonna make sure you see us clean up in here while we cook. Because, you know, when you sit down, the last thing you wanna do when you're done snacking is get up and clean your kitchen. You're full, you're satisfied, you wanna go to sleep or something. Here we go. All right. We're clean. We're ready for our next round of food. Just like that. So this will add to our snack portfolio to give us a real ability to snack and satisfy and have delicious meals. I hope you guys are making this. If you ever crave a little popcorn, this is your guy. Here we go. Mmm. Mmm. Feel like I'm in the movies.